with all that's going on with the coronavirus and people getting to spend more time together with their families, I guess it's a get to, right? You got lots of time to get connected with nature, and I love to basically refer to these cams as getting connected, and that they're my news from nature. So watch the news. So before we get started here, just wanted to talk about what we are going to cover here, and thought it would be good to have a start here with we're going to have a start with talking about the Decorah eagle nest, how that nest came about, and about eagle nests in general. And just going to double check things here because I am pretty much running everything here, and I just want to make sure that you are getting everything that you are supposed to. I think we have audio from the nest coming in. We have our intro here, and we are going to go live to the eagle nest. We see Mom Decorah on the nest, so I think that everything is coming through okay. So we'll get started here. So again, great time to connect with nature, and please stay safe. Hang in there. These are times that we haven't had to deal with in our lifetime, so hang in there, wash your hands, and listen to your doctors and all of your healthcare workers out there. So big thanks to the mods and the cam ops helping bring this to us. They put a lot of time in, so I just want to give a shout out to them. So thanks so much. So let's get right into things here. Let's talk about the Decorah eagle nest cam, and I'm going to do a little bit of control here of the cameras here too while I'm talking with you. I just need to do one thing to log into my cam here. So what you guys are seeing right now is one of the views from one of our primary cameras. This is a 4K pan tilt zoom camera, and I am just going to give a quick pan of this nest that we call N2B. Right now I'm panning down to the ground, and you can see the tree coming up here. This is a cottonwood tree. You can see some of the cables on the left, lower left there, and if you look real hard, I wish I had a pointer to show this out to you, but right about where the black cable ends at the base of the tree there, you can see the end of a 2x4 or a 2x6 there, and that is one of the base boards for the base of the nest. And that's what we're going to talk about, is these nests and how we actually built this nest, and the eagles came and took it over. So I'm going to pan up here, and we're going to just take a look at this nest. Quite a large eagle nest, and if we look at the shape of this eagle nest, it looks pretty much like a typical cone shape of a lot of the eagle nests that are out there. That is one thing that I think is really amazing. While driving up and down the Mississippi River Valley, I do a lot of that from up in the Minneapolis area all the way down to Prairie du Chien. If you look out this time of year, you see all different types of configurations of eagle nests. Some of them are thin, and some of them have been there for probably 20-30 years. They look like a very thin, tall champagne glass, and then some of them are flat like a dish. That can depend on age, it can depend on the structure of the tree that they started. But pretty interesting, all the different configurations. This is a pretty typical configuration that we have for N2B. So N2B stands for, this is the N2 tree area, and it is the second nest in that area with the B designation for Bob Anderson, our founder. The year that we lost Bob, we also lost this eagle nest. It came down in a microburst storm of wind that snapped the tree off. So we built this nest, I thought it would be a good thing here to show you. We have this available on the Raptor Resource website. This is a GoPro video of the nest building, and this happened in 2015. This was after the nest was taken down in a microburst windstorm, and basically the Raptor Resource group came together, and this was an idea that we had before Bob passed away, was to go ahead and rebuild a starter nest for the Decorah eagles in the area where the nest came down, hoping that they would come and basically inhabit the nest that we built for them, hopefully man-made to eagle nest. And it was an experiment. I remember at that time we really didn't know how this thing was going to go. A lot of nests have been built for raptors, peregrine falcons, some eagles in the early days of the eagle recovery. There's some references there, but Neil Reddick had this idea, which I remember listening to Bob's excitement when he basically said, "This is an amazing idea, let's go ahead, let's do this." So let's take a quick peek. I'm going to pull up the video here, and this is a video of it's a time-lapse video. This is going to show the build, and as you can see on the base there, it was back in August of 2015. So you'll see Neil Reddick there and Kike Arnold back in the background. We got a big crew of folks down on the ground that are helping out with gathering equipment and sending things up to both Neil and Kike up in the tree. So the structure that we decided to do here, just to make sure that nothing could fall through, was to place boards along the base and use that as stabilization before putting nest materials in there. And as I mentioned before, the goal was to make a starter nest, not a full nest, a starter nest that the eagles would be enticed to come in and hopefully build and take on as their own. So right now I'm watching this, the third foundation board is being placed and put in place. So once the foundation boards are in place, then we actually had, the N2B, or the N2 tree that came down, almost that entire area of nesting materials was right at the base of where this larger tree was. When we look at this tree, what were some of the considerations that we had with picking this tree? It was a very large tree. It had nice branch structure that looked like it was good for an eagle nest. What are some of the things that eagles need? They need a nest that's high up off the ground. This one is about 70 feet off the ground, a little bit shy of that where we started. You can see that now the boards are in place, that the sticks and a bunch of basically filler material is being packed down in there. You can see Kike dumping that, placing it in place, and then they're going to pack that and compact that down before they start putting branches on. So that's really kind of like the filter netting to stop anything from falling through, is getting that good base there. So back to the criteria for a good eagle nest tree. Eagles need to be able to fly in and approach the tree and get into the tree. So this tree had some really good approach areas that were good for eagles flying in and out of the tree. They need access, so access is important. It's about 70 feet off the ground, so the height is a good criteria. It is right next to the Decorah fish hatchery, so the food source and availability part of this was a plus. There's also the creek going right by underneath. So back to the video that I'm watching here. Neil's stepping back, and they're already on their 6th load of sticks. And as I mentioned, the nest that came down from N2 was right there, so we were harvesting a lot of these sticks that went back up into N2B, came from the nest tree, so of N2. So you can see they're making a crisscross pattern. I mean, they're basically weaving these sticks together, hopefully so they are more stable and not necessarily a random, but not all laying them in the same parallel direction. They're alternating different orientations and different sizes, and then they're alternating that also with some filler material. You can see Kike and Neil, they're testing out their technique of nest building by stepping up and down with their human talons, their feet. So it looks like we're pretty well into the process there, and as I mentioned before, many volunteers and board members and folks were down there helping out, gathering this stuff and sending up. So it was really neat how this was a group effort. So things are coming along there. So the goal there was to build the starter nest, and we'll look at some photos with just some current nest sizes here and take a look at this. But with the starter nest in place, right about in October, early October was when the eagles came back, and that was such a high point. Basically recovering from what all happened in 2015 was when we saw the first visit of the nest from Dad Decorah and Mom coming in there, and when they brought that first stick in, which really, once they start doing that, you know, it looks like it's a pretty serious commitment from the eagles that this is a nest that we're building on. Eagles build multiple nests. Eagles are master nest builders, and we got a great glimpse into that last year in the summertime. It was an early year because the eaglets fell or fledged and were in rehab, so the year ended fairly quick compared to most years. So we had a sub-adult, which is about 4 years old, based on feather type, the darker feathers and the salt and pepper color of white and darker feathers on his head. It was a male. Basically, we got to see a nest in process being built. I'm going to stop this video. We're right back to the N2B nest. Now I'm going to switch over here to show you. Here is a shot of the original nest, N1, and I'm at Command Central, which is the Holt House garage, right basically almost directly below this tree. This is where the famous Y branch is, and this is where Mom and Dad Decorah, and eaglets. Eaglets love to perch there. It's a great tree. Another tree with great access. It's right next to the creek. It's right next to the fish hatchery. But you can see this is the nest that was built by this 4-year-old male eagle. And Mom Decorah just sat there and kind of watched him do that. We had a lot of uncertainty going on there, but you can see this is fairly quick. Take a look at the branches that were brought in there. He's bringing in some hay. Looks like hay or tall grasses and material in there. I think this was over several weeks that he got this nest this far. So there's an example of eagles as nest builders. In putting things together here, decided that I had to show you all this video again. I love this video. This is from this year. Mom is in the nest. You'll see DM2, and he brings the stick in the nest, and now we get to see what happens in family time here. So this is the eagle's home. They are working on this nest, and I guess it's hard to decide sometimes who's the one who's managing and who's the doer. So I think we've got both of them trying to do the same thing here. But if you saw that, Oh, DM2 got a peck from Mom, and I think he just said, well, I think that we're done here. So we'll just work on another stick. That is one of the most hilarious videos I think I've ever seen, but that is a favorite. You'll notice that when DM2 came in there, I'm just going to switch over to the nest here. When DM2 came in there to the nest, he was carrying that branch and had a good access point. One thing I think that's interesting is, where do the materials come from when the eagle is building the nest? We got to find that out pretty much by watching. I'm going to take one quick check here at sounds. It looks like sound is coming through okay. The thing I was talking about was, where do they get the branches from? We know that there's a predominance of cottonwood trees around, and so cottonwood trees could be a source. We've got other hardwoods around here too, hardwood forest here. We got oaks, maples, things like that. But the eagles are going to take what's available. The thing that I think is interesting that I've noticed over the years here, and we got some great videos with the audio showing that I believe for the stick material that eagles get the majority of the sticks from up in the air by breaking them off. We've got a lot of great videos where you can actually watch one of the eagles in the nest, Mom Decorah in one instance I'm thinking about, and she's watching basically like a tennis game. She's watching Dad Decorah take off, and he flies around and her head is following him. You hear this crack of branches in the background, and then he goes flying by looking for an approach. I mean, some of these sticks are, take it for granted that this looks like these eagles are pretty small, and this is a pretty small nest, but this is 7+ feet in diameter that we're looking at right now with that nest. But he's coming up there trying to find the best way to get that branch into the tree. So again, access is important, but I believe that and we don't have any research about this, but I believe that most of the sticks that they probably bring in, they actually prune and grab and break off from up in the air. The grasses and a lot of the materials that come in for insulative material, for more of that, it is grass. We've got plenty of video showing them on the ground, picking that grass up, getting hay from the nearby farm and farms of the area. So I think a lot of the sticks come from branches and trees, and a lot of the insulative materials that are finer are coming, well, actually corn stalks and corn husks and things like that are coming from the ground also. So that's where that stuff is coming from. So back into the story here, we saw the initial nest. That was a starter nest. I'm going to show a graphic here. And this graphic shows, this is a photo of Dad Decorah, I'm pretty sure, with the whiter head feathers there. This is Dad Decorah sitting in pretty much the starter nest, and you can see with that lower arrow there, colored arrow, you can see I'm just using that as a marker, as that's where the base of the nest is. So you can see there's some corn husks up there and some branches in there. This was October 19th of 2015. So this is in the fall. Not much had been added to the nest yet, but you can see that where Neil and Kike left off, this is pretty close to where that started. So if we take a look at where that lower colored arrow is, that's about the base on that branch of the nest tree. You can see the second arrow up, there's like a hook shape that terminates by the arrow there, the arrowhead, and then up on the top arrow you can see kind of that hook curving to the right there and terminating. We're going to use those as markers, taking a look at where the nest is right now. So if you take a look at those markers, and also realize that this nest is probably I'd say probably 5 feet at least in diameter, and remember that's about a 3-foot tall eagle. We're looking from overhead there, so it is compressed in the view that we're looking at there, but there's just assume that that's about a 3-foot tall eagle there. So the distance between arrows there is probably pretty close to 3 feet. So we take a look at that, we can see that the way those arrows are placed, there's about, from the colored arrow at the bottom to the top arrow, there's probably somewhere between 6 to 7 feet there. So let's move on and let's take a look here. So this is a shot from our fixed camera, and we've got this one live and we show it sometimes, but you can see that bottom arrow there. So that's that marker down where the nest started. So when we take a look at that, we see that middle arrow, which is kind of pointing at the bottom of that crack or crevice in the one of the main trunks of the cottonwood tree there. The arrow that's pointing to the left at the bottom of that crease of the tree bark. And then at the top, you see that hook shape hooking over to the right, about at the same level that DM2 is sitting in the nest there. Just took this shot earlier today, about an hour before talking to you here. So that shows that pretty much what has been added on this nest through the 2016 season, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and now coming up 4 to 5 years now of material being added there. So if we look at those markers and based on eagle sizing, we could probably measure this when we go back up in the tree, but taking a look there, it's looking like we probably have at least 6 to 7 feet of material, eagle-made material. So the man-made part down below, and then the eagle-made part of the nest up above. Isn't that cool to have a nest collaboration with a pair of eagles? We also have that, remind you guys, up at our north nest back in 2018. The nest came down. These branches do rot. They will decay, and the nest structure up there is not in the crotch of a tree with multiple branches coming up there. That one is a different structure. That's another topic that we can get into here, but that's also a man-made nest that we had where the eagles adopted the man-made nest that we started. So we're shooting for 2 for 2. Hopefully we don't have to do this again. We made these nests, so hopefully these nests are going to be there for quite some time. So anyway, just a couple other things here. I can't take questions or anything, but please feel free on the chat, which say hello to everyone on the chat right now. Say hello to everyone on the Explore Discus discussion going on here now too. But any questions that you guys have about the eagle nest building, please feel free to shoot them our way, and we will follow up with some of these. So I did want to cover just a couple things. We did do measurements this last year when we were up in the nests, and a lot of these questions come up about, so first question, how much does N2B weigh? So if we take a look at the dimensions that we got, so when we were up there doing our cam maintenance work this last fall, we got dimensions of about 6 to 7 feet wide in 2 different spots for N2B, and from the bottom of the nest to the top of the nest was about 6.5 feet high. So how does that compare with what we think? We probably had about 2.5, maybe 3 foot high on the original starter nest, and we just guesstimated from looking at this graphic here that we probably had maybe about 6 or another 6 to 7 feet added. So maybe there's a little bit of a distortion looking at the angle that we're at there. So anyway, quite a bit of material added to that cone-shaped nest. It's in a cottonwood tree. Whatever the branches are in the area, for the predominance of trees where those eagles are breaking those off, are probably going to be the majority of what the composition of that nest is, with leaves and corn husks and grass and hay. We also get fish, decomposing fish, and squirrel and rabbit and other material that makes that probably one of the best potting soil, decaying nest areas for plants to grow in that you could imagine. So based on calculations, Amy came up with a calculation of about 1,600 pounds. So pretty, a little shy of a ton there. We'll probably do some more calculations here and double check on that, but just gonna pop over here now to the actual nest cam. And again, if we take a look and pan down here, we can take a look and see where that 2x4, there's actually two of them that you can see there. You can see the ends where the base of that nest was. And as we travel up looking at the nest here, Mom sitting there on her 3 treasures there, or 3 eggs, probably 6.5, 7, maybe even more now. The one thing I can tell you from looking at this graphic right here, I'm going to put this graphic back up. This camera was positioned estimating that it was going to be able to be zoomed into the center of the nest. So where that middle arrow is there, right underneath where DM2 is, that center spot in the middle of those branches there would have been where we focused that camera, assuming that another ½ a foot was going to be put on that nest. So right about where that middle white bar is about where they started this year, and everything on top of that is just nesting material that they put on in the last several months since October, November, December, January, February, and into March here. So they've put at least probably close to a foot of material on there just this year, just this season. Maybe a little bit shy of that because it does compress. But so anyway, that's what they have done this season so far. Let's go back to the live stream. Just going to pan up and show you some of these access points that we're talking about. We see the skywalk branch here. There's an area to the left of that where we see basically a hole or a zone or an opening. I'm going to center on it right there. They can fly in and out of the nest there. They can fly in and out of the nest right to the right in the picture here of the skywalk branch. There's a great fly-in area here on the other side of the branch here. We can actually see the N2 tree that snapped off here. I'm going to show you this because it's fairly close. And I'm going to go to manual zoom here because I was trying to use the auto zoom here, and you can see I'm going to zoom right in on the busted off portion of N2B here. About 20 yards over, you can see some of the old cables that were there. Going up the right side of the tree, you can see where that tree busted off. So let's go back to another view here. This is our view of the nest from the west side. So this is on the west side looking to the east. That pretty much is concluding the talk here today. I guess I want to thank you all for taking the time to come here for this talk. If you like these, maybe we can have some more. Get some topics that you'd like to learn a little bit more about with the Decorah Eagles, and we can keep this going here. Maybe in a couple weeks we can take a look at some of the dynamics of the incubation of eggs and talk maybe a little bit about what we're looking for in early April with potential hatch. So anyway, thanks for joining. Thanks to our mods and our cam ops who bring this to us. We appreciate all the volunteer time and work that you give. Thanks to Explorer and our partners here who help us out with this project and bringing these eagles to you. Have a great, safe, day and continuing week and months to come here. Wash your hands plenty and keep that distance. Over and out.